This review is on this little guy right here, the Jackson Stub. It's an Esterbrook pen, pen number 442. It's another relief or italic nib. Those of you who've watched any of these know I'm a real sucker for these types of pens. I like writing with an italic nib, prefer it over all others. These first three are also stub or italic nibs. Just kind of for comparison, you've got the probate nib number 313, the relief nib number 314, and the Jackson Stub nib number 442. The Jackson Stub is kind of in the falcon genre here. You can see the profile here from the stamping on both the falcon and the Jackson. The backside profile is similar on them as well, with this kind of relief cutout right here. I think it's a pretty nib, and I like that style. However, you can see the difference. If I wonder if I can get this to focus, between a stub or a relief nib and one that isn't. Let's bring these up here, and you can see the points are very different. The Jackson Stub I'll be using today is a newer one. The oldest nibs were ground on a grinder here on the tip of the nib, which offers some flex to the nib. It kind of lightens the metal a little bit and gives some place for ink to hold on to. Later, for cost cutting, they stamped it. You won't be able to see it on the video, but there's some stamping marks here. Maybe you can hear it. Stamping marks, little basically ridges, kind of like a washboard. The Jackson Stub was one of the more popular nibs of its day. The Relief 314 and the Falcon 48 were all very popular nibs, as was their oval. I wonder if I've got one. Oval 788 was pretty popular as well. But any of these are great nibs. I'm going to be using Mont Blanc Toffee Brown. I'll go ahead and get started here and see what we think of this. I think this Jackson Stub was really marketed as a correspondence pen, much like the 314. It was kind of marketed to that same purpose, same audience. The width of the line to me seems to be a little bit smaller than the Relief 314, much smaller than the probate. Let's put this name down here, make sure I'm in the frame. All right. It puts down a good line. It's a fairly thin line. It does have some flex. There's very little pressure on the two axes. One axis with no pressure, and as you can see, the line can get quite thick. I do enjoy this pen. I don't reach for it very often. If I'm going to write with a pen of this basic size, I would tend to reach for this one here, the Relief 314. I think it's a smoother pen. You can probably tell that just by the way I'm writing. I didn't get a very good dip on that. It does offer some flex, not nearly as much as you can see, but it is smoother. You can see that this Mont Blanc ink is bleeding badly, and that's really because the stub nib is cutting the fibers of the paper as I'm bearing down and pulling it. It's kind of a sharp nib on the edges, and it tends to catch and grab as it's running along. I don't know if I would call it tooth per se, but just not as smooth. And you can see especially there on that stroke, I just don't seem to get that as much. And it isn't just this nib. I've got lots of these Jackson stubs, and I've had real similar experiences with all of them. So do I like the nib? Yeah, I do. I've used it in writing correspondence. I reach for it occasionally. Would it be my first choice for an italic? Probably not. I think that if it was all somebody had, you could work with that nib, doing a little bit of smoothing with it, and it would probably be much better. But if you have access to a 314, I think I prefer it. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll try to continue to get other nib reviews up and accessible to you. Thank you.